Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Elizabeth Cook-Lynn, and I brought 3 poems. I don't write poetry much anymore, but of course, I think poetry is terribly important, even though I write a lot of other stuff. You probably know some of my stuff. It's mostly political and historical and boring. And they use it in classes, of Native American studies. I happen to be a member of the Crow Creek Sioux tribe, born and raised at Fort Thompson. So, now bet you something. I think that the poet's indispensable role, you see, is to be a mirror of our own collective conscience. Conscience is the word there to take into consideration. So I suppose that's why I continue to write poems. I don't send them out anymore because I can't take a rejection. But I'm going to read 3 poems, and I think most of the time we write poetry because we feel kind of hopeless and helpless. And so you write different kinds of poems, don't you? I sometimes write just for the hell of it poems, but most of the time I take poetry kind of seriously. And this is one of those just for the hell of it poems, but it is kind of serious too. It's called Whomever One Calls Whenever One Has a Quarter. And that, of course, is before we had all the blackberries. So this is kind of old, as I am. I drive many miles through towns where the only brick building is the liquor store. I pass by familiar land shapes, so spectacular, they never fail to turn my head to places where white men, selfish to the bone, vague and secretive and loud, name themselves as nationalists who balance the trade in the red from Sundance to Newcastle, where Indian landlords are on a par with white trash drifters and wife beaters. An antelope stands in the mid-morning sun, looking like he has a bad stomach. In a canyon, a dog barks. Too many still don't get the message. My radio is playing Carlos Barbosa Lima's version of classical gas, and I worry that the pact we made in order to save ourselves makes us survivors of the wasteful dead. The distant sun mourning our lack of resolve, the wind dancing on telephone lines hooked up to oblivion. The second poem, really, I sort of take seriously, and it's called Tatekizur. Tatek is an old name in my family. My family is mostly Sisito and Ihanton. And so this is an old Sisseton name, Tatek, and I feel free to use it, not only in this poem, but also in a couple of short stories that I've written. Tatek sort of means wind that belongs to him. But as I say, nobody uses it anymore. But Tateke's earth is kind of recollecting the geography of the Sioux Nation, the places that I've known. When I grew up at Fort Thompson, I grew up on horses down there, and rattlesnakes and all that, and my relatives are all buried there. And I am a landowner there, but I live in Rapid City now. So this is about putting dams in the Missouri River. 5 or 6 hydropower dams were put in the Missouri River, as you know, and flooded 550 square miles of treaty-protected land. That take is earth. Looking for the place to cross the creek, I hear a beaver splash, and I see him hurry away in spirals of transparency, model busy on his own private journey to get home in one piece, alive and well. Like most translators of these waterways, tributaries to the great Minnesota, he avoided the great bluffs where I stood and dropped into the low waters when he heard me intrude. Predictable, sensible. He feared the tread of humans, probably learned he was no match for those dam builders whose turbid reservoirs could be heard upstream for 800 miles. Dusty trails along the tree-lined creek turn to mud in shaded spots. Cow trails and horse paths lead to the struggle for meaning of a hard-scrabble life. Traditional values of the people who lived here for thousands of years, displaced as easily as the river chewing at its banks. Like a Muslim amid the relics and ruins of the holy city, I weep for Tatekia's earth. My grandson just got back from Afghanistan, and I find that poem hard to read. Well, those are from a book that I published. It's called I Remember the Fallen Trees, published by Eastern Washington University, and I taught there for a very, very long time, as a matter of fact. But anyway, the last poem that I'm going to read is a new one, and I wrote it as I looked at this sign. This is a sign that is on Highway 14. When you go from Wall to Phillip, that's the way I go to Fort Thompson. And the sign says, written by hand, "This may be the oldest old Indian trail in the central South Dakota. Was used from Fort Pierre to Bad River, Midland, Phillip, through Grindstone to Black Hills. Indians used this trail long before there were any settlements here." Well, I had seen that sign a lot driving back and forth, and finally one of my daughters was with me, and she screeched to a halt after I said, "Oh, there's that sign again." And there are several of them there. She screeched to a halt, and she said, "I'll take a picture of it." So she took a picture of it, and then I wrote the poem that goes with it. I'm using this in something that I'm writing that may get published, may not. But this is from the river. Neither a burial ground nor a monolith to the dead. There was a trail here where trespassers met Sioux Nation Treaty Council riders who, like wolves, sniffing the sacred air of the fluvial landscape, knew the pain of settlement that left the scar of its long journey. Here, Sitting Bull was born, embracing the adventure of finding hidden nests under his feet, from rivers and creeks and ponds to the Grand River, to the country of tall grass, to the country where men sang quavering songs and listened to meadowlarks interceding. He leaves a bare space now on the side of the prairie hills. Along the riverbank where the fort has stood since 1863, I stumble with cold, bare feet, searching for those nests where memory and fishing spots and diamond willows stood, and where fossils shine in the sun. Thank you.